So yeah, Moses Mogotsi, I'm a NASSP alumni. Unlike the others, I'm not as well prepared. I didn't put down the year in which I did NASSP, and you'll just have to guess. Um, but yeah, when I started out back in the day, yeah, I loved science in general. When I was like growing up in rural Northwest, I was like, science is amazing. I want to be a scientist. I don't know who Carl Sagan was, but I did come home on SABC and watch Star Trek. But back in my day, it was Voyager rather than the Next Generation. So Captain Janeway, my hero. But just loved science in general, and astronomy was cool. I'd go outside, look at the stars. My parents would wonder, what is he doing? Like, it's nighttime, come inside. And yeah, I just wanted to just love all sorts of science. And my dream was to become a scientist, not specifically an astronomer, but to become a scientist. And I did not know anything about the astronomy facilities. If you asked me then what SALT was, I had no idea. And obviously the SKO wasn't really a thing back then. So that's why I think, to make an important note, it's really important, a lot of the initiatives that have come through in our facilities to try and really spread information to people. Because if you're sitting out there in a rural place, you don't know what's going on. And now with the internet, it's a lot easier, thankfully. So yeah, that's one thing. So yeah, I guess, then my plan was, okay, what am I going to do thankfully I did well in school, and I did get accepted to some universities. And then I had a similar thought to many. I was like, I like astronomy, but I don't want to go and do a degree in astronomy. There's only one place at the time I think that gave you, and that was UCT, and I got accepted. But I thought, I want to do something more general and more diverse group of things, and then make my decision on what I wanted to do. So I went to Rhodes, where I could be more free in terms of what subjects I chose, what courses, and then to the end enabled me to decide what to do. And the nice thing about going to Rhodes, as many of us who've gone there realize, is that we had AstroSoc there, which was really, really great. It was an astronomy society that I got to participate in, and then my love for astronomy really started to accelerate and grow. And we also, Justin Jonas was there, although back then we didn't do any astronomy in undergrad except for practical, where we measured temperature of the sun, I believe. We had dishes up on top of the physics building, looking for temperature of the sun. Back then, for me, astronomy was that thing that the postgrads do with Justin Jonas, but not really having a sense of what astronomy really is. Because remember, I didn't know what real astronomers do. I didn't know what researchers do. I had never met one. I didn't know any of this stuff. I was just going in, being like, I want to be a scientist, not knowing how I'm going to get funded, how I'm going to get there. And so, thankfully, I was able to get through university despite, my parents' background and everything. And then in second year, I remember we had a physics field trip at the department, physics department. So then we got to go all around the country. We went to HMO back then, which is now Sansa. We came to Cape Town. We didn't go to the SAO. I think we went to some random guy's house who did space weather, if I remember correctly. So you may not be random. You may be very, very important. I just remember. And then I think we went to Fishhook, where a seagull stole my chips. That was my first visit to Cape Town. I did not like it. And then we went to SALT as well, my first experience of SALT, which was really amazing. It was like, wow, this telescope exists and it's huge and it's awesome. I don't remember if we met. Oh boy, it says here the computer's shutting down. Good old Windows. It's a very human thing. So yeah, so then that led me then in third year to then kind of then decide what do I want to do, and also opportunities. I don't remember who it was that exposed this. I think during this physics field trip, we then learned about something called NASSP as well, as something that, hey, this might be something that you can do. And so I then had to decide, what things do I want to do? And then I ended up going instead of biochemistry, which was my other love, and in physics, I ended up going with astronomy, and I applied for the NASSP program. I also applied for SKA, didn't let me in, but I got into NASSP, and I think I actually went back in my emails to look who were the people that I communicated with. The earliest emails that I have in my Gmail right now regarding NASSP had someone called, I forget the lady's name, but I'll have it in my slides, but second person was Peter Dunsby, answering one of my random emails. I'm probably asking about applications, and then Nikki. I don't know if Nikki's in the audience right now. But this also leads me to the other important thing here, that I think without the administrators, the people in my year it was Nikki. Without those people, most of us wouldn't be here. And I really want to just thank, especially on my side, Nikki. Yeah, thank you so much, because yeah, you're lining up in Cape Town. You have never been here, or have never lived here before, and you run into all these issues, and they're really, really, yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot, Sapelo. Yeah, you get there, and you just all these sorts of things like that you need help with, and all sorts of crises and all that, and people like Nikki were people you called. Sorry, Nikki, but also thank you. Yeah, so Yeah, Babala was, I think she was maybe in the science faculty, I don't remember, but I remember those were the first three people that I communicated with regarding NASP. And then, also, thankfully, also a bit of guidance from my lecturers. Mr. Grant was very, very helpful at back at Rhodes as well. So NASP. Yeah, came to NASP. Welcome to Cape Town. Here are your sort of your little glasses for this. So was this in a partial eclipse? I think we were at HMO and there was a partial eclipse. I don't remember, but yeah, we're all trying to clearly look at it for some reason. There's people, and there's Zuido. I have one photo that embarrasses you there. I think you're in the corner. And Muzi as well. I think you're in this one, I don't remember. And a few of the other NASP alumni as well in there. And we also, obviously, this is from the summer school, which was also such a wonderful experience because you're kind of thrown in here and it's a good way to meet the other students, to get to kind of know them and to also get introduced to all these other facilities and places. And remember, that's where we are sitting at SALT. Thankfully, I'm not in. Thanks to Wendy for exposing me in her photos. And my photos, I wouldn't be there. So if you had enough of me. But yeah, that's us at SALT as well. And really, really, I think, interesting experiences over there. And some of the people also tutored us as well, because I think Wendy and Cosmo ran the school, but I think we made people like Rudy was involved in helping us out. I don't know if I think you were involved in helping out as well, sorry. If you were, in the school. So one of the best things I think about the honors program for me is meeting people from three different backgrounds and different places. Like all the people, I'd never met someone from Madagascar before, for example. I never met people from Ethiopia. It was just meeting all these different people from different backgrounds. And for me, it was just a really great experience in that. And also that cohort where we were all sitting late in the evening trying to complete assignments in the NASP lab, maybe asking Sipela for IT help at random points, like all of that group aspect, I think, of NASP and getting people was, I think, a really, really important part of that. And also the wide range of lecturers, like meeting professional astronomers from also different backgrounds, different fields. And to describe the different fields, I came in, I don't know if any of my letters to apply for NASP, I'm thinking, I'll do cosmology. I have this great vision of becoming a cosmologist, unlocking the mysteries of the universe. But through these, you're like, oh, there are other things I could be doing. There's even things like space science, which I also hadn't learned about before. And the other thing I'll say about the wonderful SANZA/HMO trips is that you learned about dusty plasmas. I think that was one of our favorite things to learn about at SANZA. Dusty plasmas, yeah. Love-hate relationship with them. I think I called them dusty plasmas at some point. But yeah, dusty plasmas, good times. And also, you also got to see the same movie about the ionosphere and learn the song over and over. The magnetic field was dying on Earth, and they kept showing us that. So yes, I know how important the magnetic field is for our survival and how it's changing. So I learned a lot as well, even from a visit to SANZA. And it was definitely tougher times. It wasn't plain sailing. It was tougher times, especially from not having done any sort of astronomy in undergrad, right? They've done physics, just some of the things to learn and all that. And David, yes, I remember your lectures too, in the hot summer sun at 2 p.m. OT, yeah, I remember, good times. And then in my master's, I had the benefit of also replacing Wendy and Cosmo. Sally and I were the organizers of the NASP summer school for that year, and also we had such great students, and seeing some of them succeed and move on has just been such a pleasure for me. Yeah, Eli, I see you, I know you're giving a talk, standing right in the middle of that at the rocket launch site, and a bunch of other people here some of which are not in astronomy anymore, but are doing other things as well. I think that was a really great experience as well. Best part about, that shouldn't say best part. I don't know if you remember, most interesting part about this trip, someone got bitten by a snake. And we were out in I forget where it was, but somewhere in the northern suburbs, and someone got bitten by a snake and he just walked off and he was fine. And another thing I'll say about this is as well, I never got to appreciate how organizing this with all the help you get, how easy it was when I then had another school to organize recently. But seeing all of that and experiencing it, I think was great. And Masters was definitely tough. Favorite part about Masters, obviously the World Cup, but then the next part is getting to do research. Because I will admit, at the end of the Masters coursework, I was like, coursework I'm done with right now. And research is really why I'm doing science. I'm doing science to be able to do research, which I think is the cool stuff. And in honors, I did do research. I actually worked on black holes with Chris Clarkson, I think. But then I saw the light. No offense to those who study black holes, but the light's going in. I want to see things giving me light, not sucking it in. And I learned about galaxies, right? And there was also radio astronomy. It's you can look at galaxies in all these different ways, and look how beautiful they look. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I study nearby galaxies partly because of how beautiful they look. Like seeing images of them and whatever like wavelength you want to look at, it's just stunning. And then learning that I'm looking to look at like the carbon monoxide in galaxy, that's so cool. Like for me, studying that, so I studied H1 and CO in galaxies, nearby ones, and part of this working as part of this big survey. Another thing is we had cohort as well of people like I think Yanja, who Wendy mentioned, who was also involved in this and was sort of someone that I was in our group and we worked with. And the other part of it as well that I've enjoyed about astronomy, so when I came for NASSP, I remember I'd never ever been in a plane before, I didn't have a passport, and then obviously at some point I did eventually get on a plane to fly back home, but the other thing is I got to go overseas, and that is this one opportunity that I also was really good for me. I remember as a kid that you get these Tazos in your Simba chips, and then they had all these ones all around the world. And for me to see some of the places on those, it was just, I don't know how to describe that, but it was really, really cool, not getting bitten by kangaroos and drop bears. Very good times. And also you get to starting to meet astronomers from the places. Like I've met astronomers through some of these conferences and meetings that then I've gotten to know later, and sometimes then I've gotten to work with later in my life. So being able to travel, I really, that's one thing as well as part of this career. Like when I go to my family and tell them I'm going to these places, they don't believe it. And I think for me, it's a privilege as well that I really appreciate of being in this job. So I wasn't scared away after doing a master's. I was like, I want to go do a PhD because I want to become a scientist. So I then did PhD I continued in the galaxies theme, but this time saw more light and went into the optical side of things. So this is why I got to work with IFUs and did a whole lot of work with some of the earlier IFUs, at least in the field of extragalactic work, these are from WinSpar-Spec, so it's a telescope in the US, and yes, SPARSPEC is the instrument, and doing IFU work, and also Meerkat. The other thing I didn't point out was, we had Justin Jonas in the department at Rhodes, and this is how we found out about this SKA thing. South Africa's bidding for it. And it's just been so cool for me as well to see that journey of like, South Africa's bidding for it, we're gonna get it, what is it? To like, wait, South Africa's now building this radio telescope facility, Meerkat, and also South Africa's actually gonna host it. And growing in the field and growing in academics and seeing all of that has just been an amazing journey as well. And I remember this time starting my PhD, the big projects for Meerkat were people working on them. And that's us, those of you that I work on collaboration or group called Mongoose, that's us in a room somewhere in Perth deciding which galaxies you're all stuck with for the next few years. Wise souls and one random guy who's just looking at the pretty pictures. But that's where, and being involved in that is just for me amazing. And maybe I didn't appreciate it then, but now thinking back, you're like, wow, this is such a big important survey, and I was involved in it. And this is some of my work. I won't bore you too much with the specifics, but essentially studying, a lot of my work has been around studying how gas behaves in nearby galaxies and how this relates to star formation. And then in my PhD work, I essentially continued that, but now looking at sort of the kinematics and using optical data to do so. And the nice thing about optical data, unlike radio, back then at least, was like, I've got H1, I have to choose between that and CO and study them separately. In optical, you have all these fancy lines now that you have to learn about and study and be able to use. And this is other work that I did as well, that it's evolving using an IFU in Australia called the WIFE's instrument. And that's the other great thing about my studies. I then got to do my first observation. So I could go all the way to Australia to do that. It was worth the trip. I will say. The spiders were great, and the wombats too. But it was such a good experience. And I think for me and for the students in the crowd, getting to observe is such a useful skill because you get all this amazing data. As in nowadays, most people might not do any observations, but it helps you understand where the data comes from, and if things go wrong, why things are wrong, and just better really understand what's going on in that data. And so by this point, I'd done the gambit, I'd done radio, I'd done optical. What next? I decided to then continue my career in astronomy. I went to the SAO, thankfully they let me in. And then I got to now start using the fancy buzzwords that float around. And then the buzzword, the one that I ended up focusing on was something called the baryon cycle. And it's really, a lot of my work now is all about that, is trying to understand galaxies and the ecosystems and how gas flows into these galaxies, gas flows out, and how this affects how these galaxies change with time. And Michelle, I'm sure, will give you a much more expert talk in her, Michelle Kluver, not Michelle Knight, an expert talk on that. But that's essentially now what I work on and what interests me, and I do that in a multi-wavelength way. And that's one thing I liked about the SAO, is that I could work in whatever wavelengths I want to do, and also utilize the facilities there, but also other facilities. And then this led me then to this job now, where I work as a salt astronomer. And believe it or not, that's not me. Me in my younger days. That's Rudy in action. And I'd like to say another NASSP alumni, so Harry is actually the one observing this week, and there's like Rudy on the page. And that's actually what we do. So all of you who like propose salt, we sit there at the telescope, observe your programs. Don't worry, Eli, program's coming up, and answer your questions as well. So if you have any like things that you're wondering about or you're unsure about or you have questions, we deal with all of that. And so really, I think for me working as well, I got a lot of different sets of skills that I learned through that's part of why I was interested to go in this direction, at least in that time, was that I've kind of come from the academic side, but then now these other interesting practical aspects that I've never learned before. So definitely lots of observing, way more than I've done before and still do. Support, so you kind of customer service, and you're the customers, and we're the people who are going to try and make you happy realistically. But also learning about instrumentation, right? So we're also involved in handling many instruments that are at SALT, and I've also been fortunate enough that I've been involved in the development and sort of installation of a new instrument called NIRWALS, which is a near-infrared IFU instrument. And so with that, I've had to learn a lot as well about all the other. An instrument doesn't just get like plugged into your telescope and it starts working. No, unfortunately. There's a lot that goes into it. I mean, just yesterday I was just like, yeah, we should move this button here. Maybe we should not have this button, to that level of minutia, but even mechanically and even things, I think there was a cooling issue. There's so many different aspects that goes into like having a telescope, having all these instruments, and I'm happy that I've gotten to learn all of this as well, and it's added to my sort of experience. And also just learning how a telescope is run. You don't just wake up in the morning and go, yeah, please come give us your ideas for what to observe. It's more complicated than that. And seeing that for me is great. And also at SALT, we observe everything. So we, as the SALT astronomers, we go just all sorts of different kinds of target, and learning all that different, because we have to know a little bit at least about some of what people are observing, has been so useful. From David telling you at 12:30 at night that, please observe this thing's exploded, to like someone else who's got an observation. You really learn a lot. And it's been, quite exciting. Sometimes, definitely stressful. The other thing as well is the other elements of being at the SO is allowing me to work on things that aren't just science focused, but also things like the General Assembly, like being involved in that, in the early efforts to try and, preparing the bird for that and working on that. And just it's been, and then knowing that, that I succeeded, and being involved in the early stages at least of the planning. That's, I think, very, very like great things. And even things that like the International School for Young Astronomers, I still haven't fully recovered from that. It was last year. But seeing what the benefit that it can give to students and people who are interested in astronomy, I think is something that I'm quite interested in. And just things that involve outreach and education of astronomy, just seeing how we can change people's lives or educate them. I think one thing that I've enjoyed, I shouldn't say this too loudly so Kanye can't hear me, when people come to SALT and you have these big groups, yes, it sucks if they're all weak, but it really is nice sometimes seeing these fresh-faced students and people who are just excited about things that sometimes we take for granted. Like someone seeing a galaxy like there that's like, billions of like light years away. That's super exciting. I may be used to it, but just seeing that wonder and that excitement in people's faces and being at that interface where, no, I'm actually taking the data now. Like even for scientists, I remember one time we had a PI who came in and I was like, we're going to observe your data tonight. It's going to be so cool. You're going to see that. So many different elements of I think this job for me have meant a lot to me, and I think are really great perks of doing this. And it's definitely not easy all the time, but I think a lot of the high points are really, really high and exciting. And obviously I'm interested in doing research as well. You don't necessarily care about it, but I now study all sorts of kinds of galaxies and where they stay. And I also wouldn't be able to do some of this work without students as well. Like I've gotten to supervising students has also been another experience that just really I've enjoyed. Like seeing how happy my student is at like submitting and getting a great result. Like it's just very, very rewarding, and it's very exciting. And like some of them are here today. I hope I didn't embarrass you, but some of the work that they put in. Some of these people, like Makala is a NASSP student, so is Petro. Craig is also somewhere around here, and Mpimetsi was a NASSP student as well. Like seeing some of the work that they get to do, and me being involved in that, I think that's such a cool experience. And getting to use all these telescopes, getting to use SALT, getting to use Meerkat, getting really, really interesting results from that. Yeah, I think it's quite exciting. And working with also very, very interesting people as well. So thank you, NASSP. I definitely wouldn't have been here without you, and I think the whole journey has been quite a great learning experience. Even through the tough times, I've learned a lot from those. And yeah, maybe in the future I'll be collecting bugs, maybe in the future I'll be on space, maybe I'll be doing astronomy, but all in all, I think it's been a very worthwhile enterprise, and I really thank the people who've made NASSP happen, and especially the unsung heroes like the administrators and people in the background who help make it run. Thank you so much.
Thank you.